Hey, Ohio, welcome to the Ohio Kidmin Leadership Development. And what we want to talk about today is how to lead your ministry through crisis. How many of us are in this season right now? And no, we won't always be in this season, but this is a season that is just completely uncharted, completely something no one's ever been through. So it's not like we can go and talk to some wise counsel that has been through this and done this before. No, we have to really dig deep, read our word, pray desperate prayers, honor those around us, and just proceed with excellence. So today, as we are talking about how we're going to lead our ministry through this crisis, we have welcomed Kathy Walters from the Cincinnati area to help us with this because she has got a lot to say in this area and actually has some training behind her. So without any hesitation and without any further ado, I want to welcome to the screen Kathy Walters.
Hi, Ohio Kidsmen. How are you? Thank you, Stacy, for giving me this opportunity to just pour into this phenomenal group. I've been watching you and I'm inspired by you. And I just wanted to pour some value and maybe encourage you a little bit. My name is Kathy Walters. I'm a registered nurse of over 2 decades. In this role, I've worked in critical care, trauma, and in the cancer settings. About 10 years ago, I began serving kids and leaders and families in my local church and in the church in Ohio. The majority of my time I spent leading a kids ministry in a suburb of Cincinnati. I led families and volunteers through just about every ministerial challenge from church plant to regional facility. About a year ago, I was brought to a John Maxwell team and I became a John Maxwell leader, speaker, and coach because I had a heart to walk people and teams through leadership development. I don't say all of this stuff to say, look what I've done. Today, we're talking about crisis. And needless to say, in my 30 years plus experience in both of my callings of healthcare and ministry, this girl has seen some crisis. I've seen ministerial leadership of all, crisis of all kinds. I've led teams in a trauma bay through the touch and go, moment to moment, not knowing what's going to happen and whether we're going to be victorious or fall short of our goal in saving a life. I've held the hands of parents as their child has taken their first breath, their last breath, and everything in between. This is what I know. As leaders, we are lighthouse keepers. The lighthouse is going to stand in the wind, in the rain, in the storm, sunrise, and sunset. And our job is to clear the way for everyone possible to see that lighthouse no matter what the weatherman says. So I pray my message to you is informational, inspiring, and thought-provoking as you lead teams through this and many more crises to follow. So we're going to step in and we're going to start talking through some of our leadership, our leading through crisis. First of all, we're going to start with a definition of leadership. Well, or what leadership is. Leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. All of you, I know, have influence in your circles. We also know that everything rises and falls on leadership. This means if you lead in your home, in your business, in a church, or a unit in a hospital, you have a lot on you right now. Crisis of any kind has a way to exaggerate what type of leader you are. It can exaggerate the positive and it can exaggerate the negative. It shows you and others what type of leader you are. We are in an ever-changing crisis, a health crisis, economic, political, possibly even personal crisis. We don't know how long it will last, and we don't know how bad it will get. So our goal through this program is to learn how to lead others through crisis and get a good perspective on what crisis is as a leader so you can better talk people through. All right, we are going to start. So how to be a good leader in a bad crisis. The very first thing you want to do is put people first. We want to help people get through it and be better in it. In a virus, we continue to focus on people's safety. We know that our teams, our local government, our state government, our federal government has gone through some pretty extreme measures for the safety of their people. That's what good leadership does. It puts your people first and their needs and their safety. The second thing we want to do is we want to educate ourselves. We want to know what the real issue is, what that issue looks like for us, and where do we go from here. As a leader, we want to go to solid sources. There's a lot of information out there. You guys know it. Some we can really trust. Others, we're not sure if we should trust it or not. So you want to go to those places that has great information that you can trust. And of course, in a virus in this COVID-19, we look at the World Health Organization or the CDC, the governor is on, the president is on. Go to those sources where you know that you're going to get the right information for you and your teams now. Now, let's look at what we know, and then I'm going to show you how to apply it a little bit. About this crisis, we know that many people have mild or moderate symptoms. The mortality rate is really low for people under 40. We know that it is very easily washed off hands, wiped clean from surfaces. This is good news. We know that this virus, if you stand 6 feet apart and social distancing, that's what we've been practicing, correct? And we wear masks, it's going to protect us. Now, we also know that we have scientists on a global level working to find out more information about this, and vaccine trials are underway, if not first trials being completed. So this is how we use basic information. I was in the first week of this crisis in a hospital, and I had an EVS or someone who was cleaning the area. You could just see the fear on her face. She was masked, she had everything she needed, and she was cleaning. And I walked up to her and I said, Savannah, you looked very stressed. How can I help you? What can I do? She says, I am. I have asthma. I have bad lungs. I'm full of fear. And she was just being very transient with me. She said, I have kids. I'm afraid they're going to bring it home. I'm afraid I'm going to get it here at work. I'm afraid for my life. I looked at her as a leader, just actually as a coworker, and I said, Savannah, let me tell you, everything is going to be okay. I said, this virus can be easily washed off your hands. Are you washing your hands frequently? She said, yeah, I am. I said, Savannah, we also know that it can be wiped off surfaces. You're wiping it off surfaces here. Is that how you keep your home? She goes, absolutely. I said, Savannah, if we stand 6 feet apart and wear a mask, we are protecting each other from this. She said, yes. And I said, okay. Do you have somebody that can go out and get you some things if you need it? Or do you need to go out in your community? And she goes, no, I have a boyfriend. I said, look, this is why I know it's going to be okay. You're doing everything you can to help yourself and to protect yourself during this. I just saw the peace wash over her. She said, I don't know how you can be so calm, but thank you. And she had a totally different demeanor. It's very simple information, but it's very easy. So make sure we educate ourselves so we can lead others. All right. The third thing we want to do is we want to be flexible. Crisis has a ton of uncertainty. It's kind of like just a huge medium of uncertainty. We want to be adaptable. We want to think through plan A, but then if we have to jump to plan B, X, Y, Z, be aware and be okay with that, and help your teams respond to your teams in grace so that they can respond to you in grace as well. Speaking of teams, leverage our teams. Look, you are not intended as a leader to do this by yourself. Put your company, your family, and your team on the same mission and one vision, and bring in different perspectives. God put you at the top, but he put a bunch of amazing people around you to lead well through times like this. Look, all of us are smarter than just one of us. So jump in, use your teams, and you will not only be blessed by what their perspective is, but you are going to help them feel valued through this difficult time. All right, the next thing, we want to communicate judiciously. So use discernment and good judgment. We always know that wise communication is better than constant communication. I was able to be in a hospital during this time, and it was really kind of fun to watch these leaders grow. At first, they were changing policies every other day. We couldn't keep up with the emails on how quick things were changing through this particular crisis. About week 2, I saw kind of a light bulb go off. I saw growth and discernment take place. Good leaders were becoming better. They were taking the information, they were working diligently at it, and then they were waiting for the go-ahead. Or they were waiting and making sure they checked in with their higher ups that it's okay to roll out. What happened from that is their teams were less confused, they were less frustrated, they were less fearful, and they felt more supported because we communicated judiciously. Last but not least, and I think this is so important, be authentic. People prefer this authenticity more than perfection. I promise you that. You were given this position as a manager, as a parent, as a director, as a presbyter, as an area rep, whatever. You were given it for such a time as this. Your authenticity shines to help people love you, trust you, and believe in you. To partner with your authenticity, though, always remember that you want to tell the truth, put people first, keep your vision out in front of your teams constantly. Understand that uncertainty is okay. You do not have to be a know-it-all. Sometimes you just want to talk about their family dog, but be there. Encourage others by example. Wash your hands. If we're talking about this particular one, just encourage them by example to stay safe. And this is the hardest one of all, manage yourself. Managing myself might be the most difficult job of them all. All of us are doing, we need to be doing what we're asking others to do. That is staying isolated, that is taking time and taking breaks with our families. Just because we're a leader and we're moving at breakneck speed with everything changing doesn't mean that we don't need to show our teams that we are getting some relaxation and rest. I remember as a church leader, I probably went to service 3 times in a 7-year period. But I expected my teams to go to service every single week. Guess what? They never went because I never went. So it is best modeled. What is best modeled for your team needs to be shown by you. So manage yourself first, and then you can lead others. All right. Now, I want to talk a little bit, now that we understand what to focus on, how to be a good leader in a bad crisis, let's get a little perspective on crisis. The first perspective I want to talk about is crisis is actually quite common. We don't think about it because we always think this crisis is the worst ever. And let me tell you, we are still in the middle of an incredible crisis. I pray every day that this crisis comes to an end, no more lives are lost, the economy jumps back up, and all of that. However, it is not the first crisis on earth. Please understand, there's a tendency for us as humans to think about our place in time and what is happening with us, and it is not and think that it's exaggerated. Our job as leaders is to give perspective to our teams. It is not only to give perspective, but to give it with hope, security, and encouragement. So I'm going to give you a few crises over the last 20 years that we dealt with to help you get perspective. Number 1, Y2K. Does anyone remember where they were on December 31st, 1999? Now, some of you weren't even born yet, I guarantee. But let me tell you, I was right in the middle of a pediatric ICU, and we were expecting phones to go down. We were expecting fax machines to go down. We were expecting computers to crash, ventilators to crash. And I was sitting here holding a white grape juice, like little glass, holding it as midnight struck, and I held my breath, ready to jump into action as soon as everything crashed. And about 5 seconds later, I breathed and realized it was all going to be okay. And it wasn't as big as we thought it was. I bet I'm not the only one that can remember what happened that day, right? That was a big crisis. 2001, we saw anthrax. We saw the Twin Tower and the Pentagon attacks. We all remember where we were that day. 2002, we saw West Nile virus. 2003, SARS. 2005, bird flu. Ebola in 2006. 2008, recession. We weren't even sure how the country was going to rebound from this. We saw huge numbers of job loss. 2009, we saw the swine flu. My dad was having open heart surgery. I was terrified by his compromised condition. And 2010, we saw BP oil and all of that. 2014, we saw Ebola again. 2016, Zika virus. Let me tell you, I'm not trying to make light of this crisis. I am your friend. And as much as any of you, I am feeling life-altering effects. But it has been this bad. In 1920, the Spanish flu was killing 1 million people a week across the world. When it was at its height, it affected 25% of the world's population, and there were very dark times. We are in a tough spot with no idea what the next few days, weeks, and months are going to look like. It is our job as leaders to keep perspective. All right, we also know this. Crisis is distracting. Now, distraction confuses our priorities. It pulls us from what we're supposed to be doing, and it keeps us all wrapped up between here and here with other things that really isn't where we're being led to be. As a leader, we need to help our team members, ourselves and our team members, stop that. Traction is the opposite of distraction. It pulls us toward what we want to do in life. Our job is to focus on gaining traction by lifting people, serving people, and adding value to them. We can manipulate people and get them into traction with fear, and it can be for our own advantage, but this is wrong. It's wrong. It's effective, but it's wrong. Serving, adding value, and lifting people up and motivating them toward a common goal. This is what we want to do. Let me tell you, I saw our own kids ministry director. She was amazing at the beginning of this. She just started pulling things together and putting in front of us, look, this is what I think you're going to need. What are you going to need? How are you going to do it? And just blasting our emails, social media, anything that she could to help us stay focused and gain traction on what we needed to do. It was incredible, and that shows a great leader. What crisis reveals? So think about it. If you take an orange and you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Orange juice, right? Crisis kind of gives us the same type of squeeze. So what happens when to a leader in crisis? Are you overwhelmed? Do you complain? Are you full of fear? Or when you're squeezed, are you showing hope and empowerment and positivity? This is for you as a leader to be aware of what comes out of you during crisis. If when you're squeezed, there's fear, there's complaint, or there's overwhelming feelings, you may need to look a little deeper into your own mess and see what you need to deal with and work on fixing that. Bring in a coach, a mentor, or another leader. Ohio KidsMen has incredible coaches and mentors that we can use. I would love to help you to help work a few things out. I guarantee if you don't like what you see when you're squeezed in a crisis and you fix it, your team and you will be healthier for it on this end. All right. Crisis requires adaptability. Crisis is a case study of uncertainty. We know that. We don't know what's happening tomorrow. We don't know if we're going to open up, close back up. We have no idea. And no one knows how long it will last. So all good coaches, as you well know, kind of go in with a pregame plan. And then by halftime, most of the time, they're switching some things around because the other team's defense looks a little tougher or our offense isn't as strong today. So we want to adjust to the plan. Now, adjusting doesn't mean conformity. Leaders adapt. They adjust out of strength in order to succeed. In a crisis, this is where leaders help their people adjust their way to victory. As a church, conformity would have been shut the doors, we'll wait this out. But not us, right? I saw this entire ministry. When those doors were shut, they got on the same mission, the same vision and goal, and they took that church outside the building and adapted for victory. All right. Also, a crisis is a time when leaders show up and they become visible. Now, leadership is a visible presence. In Israel, officers lead their way to battle. They go first before their troops. In fact, the number of deaths in an Israeli infantry is greater in officers than in any other group. They believe that the soldiers should always see the officers' back. In other words, the officers must lead the way. During a crisis, leaders show up and they are the first to go forward. They are highly visible. They show up early. Let me tell you, you may not have all the answers, but you want to be a visible presence of hope and support. Your voice should be felt. Notice, I didn't say heard so much. We're not always sure what's happening, right? We're not sure of that next step, that next best step. It should be felt. So I remember at the very first 2 weeks of all this, my manager and directors, they would take turns. Manager would be in the office, the director would be outside the office with the teams. There was no new news. There was nothing more they could tell us, but they were there. If anybody had questions, if anybody had worries, they were on the unit. And then the director would go in their office and the manager would come out. There was always a visible presence of leadership, and they were there earlier than anyone else, and they stayed later. So you also want to show up with clarity, with hope and encouragement. Prioritize what we should do in the time of crisis. You may not know much, but you can say this is our next right step and we'll wait. So sometimes during a crisis, you just don't know what that next right step is. And that's okay. You tell your teams, I'm waiting to see, but we're all in this together. We're all doing it. And you're going to be the next one to know. I want to give you a challenge and kind of give you some words of encouragement. I've been watching this kids ministry team and the Ohio AG team and the national AG team do amazing, amazing work through this coronavirus and all of this crisis. No matter where you are leading, whether it be the church, the hospital, if you're leading the country, or even if you are a leader in your own home, all of these institutions are going to stand in this storm, just like a lighthouse. You as a leader are that lighthouse keeper. Your job is to keep the fuel filled enough to burn the flame, to keep the windows clean so that the small ships can see the flame, right? To fix those not so sturdy pieces of the structure so it can stand more heartily in the storm. And most of all, point your team toward that lighthouse with hope and encouragement at the same time. I understand it is an exhausting and never-ending job. Let me encourage you that it's worth it. Your family, your business, your ministry, and the purpose of these institutions will be better on the other side of this storm with your loving, calm, encouraging, and strong leadership. Now, make sure you set aside some time to rest and recuperate so that you can step confidently into the position that our Lord gave us for just a time as this. I'm going to challenge you to do one of two things as a leader. Look back and see, what does a crisis reveal in you? How did you respond at first? What did you like? What didn't you like? And write it down, and then ask a good friend, someone that is a leader in your life, or call our KidMin office and say, hey, I really want to talk about this with someone. And let's see how we can help support you so that you can work some things out. Or you can show what you and your team need to do to gain traction. If you feel like as a leader, you're just not sure what the next steps are, you're kind of spinning your wheels and not getting where you feel like you need to go in this time, again, look at that, write it down, email me, email Stacy, email any of our, touch base with us, and we want to partner with you and we want to lead you through this. Look, you guys are incredible leaders. I've seen some wonderful work come out of this team and the entire National AG organization. I believe that what we do right now is going to make the world better. And I am so amazed by what you're doing, and I'm proud of you as well. Thank you.
What an incredible message, especially in this time of so much uncertainty. And what I loved, I just wrote a couple notes down, because what I love at the Ohio Ministry Network office is our culture and the things that we build off of, which is desperation, honor, excellence, and communication. And just even listening to everything that you said, right now we're desperate. Right now we don't know all the answers, but we know someone that does. And so root ourselves in prayer first. You've got to go to Jesus. Jesus is the only answer. And it isn't until we get into that spot in desperation. If you look over and over in the Bible, and even over and over in all of these things that have happened over time, what really changes that ship? Prayer.
Absolutely.
Prayer starts revival. So let's function out of that desperation leading through this crisis. And then you spoke about putting people first. So honor people over process every time. Yes, processes are very important. I am the first to admit that. I have a strategic brain that God gave me, and I love to use it, and it makes me excited. But I have to put people over process. We have to honor those that are around us. And you said that. And then just excellence. We have to function with excellence. And one of those keys that you talked about is educating ourselves. I know it gets so frustrating listening to the governor every day at 2 when he decides to come on, and reading all the CDC guidelines and following them, when maybe we're on one end of the thing and we think this is crazy and we all just want to hug each other. Or maybe we're on this side and feel like, what are you doing? And you're opening up, and this is still really real. It doesn't matter which side you are on, but as a leader, we have to educate ourselves on both sides. And then we have to respect and honor both sides, and really roll out plans that really do honor those around us and provide an excellent place where God can show up. And then the last thing you talked about is communicating judiciously. Wow, I said the word. I was really worried about being able to say see, I'm not going to say it again. But just communication. I think that's huge. It's just like when your director and your manager flip-flop spots. That was communicating. It might not have been verbal, but they were communicating that they cared. They were communicating that they were right there beside you in the dirt, in the crisis. They might not have had any answers, but it didn't matter. You didn't feel alone. You knew that if something hit the fan and something went haywire, that they were going to be right there. And so I think that's very important as we lead through crisis as leaders, that we are really communicating, not only verbally, but also being there, which is really hard when we're in a virtual state. But being there can be a phone call. Being there can send a card in the mail. Being there can be a drive-by and a honk honk. You know, being there can meet in a parking lot and stay 6 feet apart. I mean, it just all looks different. And if I'm honest, just like you said, crisis doesn't go. This one may go away, but crisis isn't going to go away. It's been since Bible times. Like, if you read the Bible, it sounded like it was the end of the world then. They did some crazy stuff just like we do today, and go through some crazy stuff. So I think this is a very timely teaching and training to really understand how to lead through crisis, understand what a crisis is, look it in the face, and go forward. So thank you so much for your time today, Kathy. I really appreciate you being on our Ohio KidMin team. And she's actually the area rep in the Cincinnati area, but she's also on our leadership development team. And so if you have any questions, you saw her information before, or you can just simply email okm@ohioministry.net, and we'll answer you as soon as we can. I hope today that you go out and you change the world. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, guys.